All right, today we're jumping into Oliver Kingsley's A History of Malta. This is a book that really tackles a fascinating paradox. How could such a tiny island nation become the backdrop for some of the biggest, most epic struggles in all of history? Let's dive right in.
Kingsley kicks things off with this really powerful idea. He's basically saying that Malta's story isn't just about some little island. No, it's about the very heart of the Mediterranean. It's the ultimate prize in that constant tug-of-war between Europe, Africa, and the Middle East.
And this word right here, this is the central thesis of the whole book. Kingsley's big argument is that Malta is a perfect microcosm. By looking at this small chain of islands, you can literally see the entire history of the Mediterranean, all the empires, the religions, the massive conflicts, all playing out on this tiny, tiny stage.
So let's start right where the book does, with this incredible paradox of Malta's size versus its historical weight. I mean, how on earth can so much history be crammed into such a small space?
Kingsley just keeps coming back to this contrast, and for good reason. On one hand, you've got a landmass of just over 300 square kilometers, a tiny speck. But on the other hand, you have a history that starts with these massive temples that are actually older than the pyramids. It's that sheer density of history that really defines the island.
And here's why, according to Kingsley, its geography was basically its destiny. He uses this incredible metaphor of an aircraft carrier carved by nature, which is just the perfect way to explain why it was never allowed to just be a quiet little place. Its location made it an unsinkable prize for any empire that wanted to control the seas.
And because of that strategic spot, you get this relentless parade of empires. Kingsley takes us on this whirlwind tour through all the different powers that tried to control this one strategic rock.
Kingsley really zooms in on four big transformative powers. First, you have these mysterious temple builders way back in 3600 BC who left behind the oldest freestanding stone structures on Earth. Then you fast forward to 870 AD when the Arabs arrive and give Malta its unique Semitic language. In 1530, the Knights of St. John show up and turn the island into a massive fortress. And then finally, in 1814, the British Empire rolls in and plugs Malta into its huge global network. You can see how each one just added another layer to what it means to be Maltese.
And believe me, the list just keeps on going. Kingsley also gets into the influence of Phoenician traders, Roman administrators, Byzantine governors, you name it. The key takeaway here is that for most of its history, Malta's story was being written by outsiders.
Okay, so all of this constant struggle, it all builds to what Kingsley sees as the absolute heart of his book. He argues that the modern Maltese identity, that famous resilience, was really forged in two defining brutal trials by fire.
The book draws this brilliant parallel between these two events. In 1565, you have the Knights and the Maltese people holding out against the overwhelming might of the Ottoman Empire. Then you jump forward almost 400 years to World War II. And the islanders are enduring the most intense bombing campaign in history from the Axis powers. Kingsley frames these sieges as the crucibles, the two moments that created an unbreakable national spirit.
And speaking of World War II, Kingsley highlights this one detail that is just incredible. In 1942, King George VI awarded the George Cross, the highest civilian honor for bravery, not to a single person, but to the entire population of Malta, the whole island. It's a completely unique tribute to their collective heroism, and it's still on their national flag today.
So, after all that fighting, what happens when the wars finally end? Well, in the last part of the book, Kingsley explains how Malta had to completely reinvent itself. Its whole identity as a military fortress was suddenly over.
And Kingsley breaks down this incredible modern transformation into four key steps. It all kicks off in 1979, when the British military base closes down for good, ending what he calls the fortress economy. So what do? Well, Malta starts looking to Europe, applying to join in 1987 and finally becoming a full EU member in 2004. And now, it's done it again, totally reimagining itself as a thriving hub for finance and digital technology.
And that brings us to the very end of the book, and the big question Kingsley leaves us all to think about. For millennia, the island's story was about surviving threats from the outside. The rock always held. But can that same resilience, he asks, now tackle the modern internal challenges of a globalized world, things like governance and identity? It's a really provocative end to a fascinating story of survival and reinvention.